Hello, Mike. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you, brother. How are you? How is everything?
Everything's good. So it is time of this video, February 24th, 2025. I finished lengthening May 29th, 2024. So so I've had some time to obviously live out life, process things, physically, literally, and just psychologically. So um there's been a progression. Things are obviously very positive right now, and I'm enjoying how things are going, yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you also for the Zoom call. Thank you that you take your time, and I really appreciate it, Mike. I have a lot of questions, but let me start with this. What was your height before, and what is your current height?
Well, I thought I was 5'8". My 18-year-old height was 5'8", which is 173. But of course, you guys measured me at 5'7" and a third, which was 171.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like if you go to Live Life Taller, that's going to become kind of like an inside joke amongst the patients is that they uh, they'll say that Live Life Taller measures them shorter than they really are. Because no one's happy with their starting height. Someone will go in and say, "Oh, I'm 179," and then you guys measure them at like 175, and so I think people just tend to measure or remember their teenage height, and it's not that you become 70 years old and you've lost an inch. You probably lose like, a fraction of a centimeter every decade or so, but I'm late 30s, but I was 171, and then I gained 15.3 centimeters quadrilateral precise. So that was 6.8 tibia and 8.5 femur.
Oh, okay.
And now I'm so 186.3, so 6'1" and a third. And of course that's starting at 5'7" and a third. If I had started at 5'8", then I'd be 6'2", right? And
Yeah.
I don't, some of the patients count with shoes on. That's nonsense. It's barefoot. Okay. I mean, there's no delusion here. So, but 186 plus barefoot. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a tremendous change, just not just physically, but psychologically. My self-esteem is a lot higher now. And I think of it kind of like moving up two tiers in the sense that 5'7" and a third, 5'7" and a half. I was a little bit short before. I know some people watching this just saying I would kill to be 5'7" and a third. I'd kill to be 171. Okay, because some patients are going to start out in the 150s, 160s, et cetera. Some people start out pretty tall, and I don't have to tell you. You obviously get patients. Sometimes they come in, they're 178, even in the 180s sometimes,
Yeah.
and there's only a fraction of the people who are willing to show their face for the content. You get a lot of success stories. People don't show their face. But I was a little bit short, initially, maybe compared to white men. So I was 171. And I moved up one tier into average. I'd say maybe that's 178. I got to around 5'10, 5'11, and then I moved up a second tier into like, I wouldn't say I'm like super tall. I mean, 6'1" and a third is not. It's like maybe you just into tall territory. You just entered tall territory. Um, so I could move up another tier,
Mm.
right? I mean, that's a whole separate discussion. I've talked with you about coming back and nothing delusional. I mean, this isn't like I'd come back and do another 15.3. It would be a second
Yeah.
go at it. But, I am thinking about
Mm.
doing this again in about a year for another 7 to 10 so I could get to 195. I know that sounds like madness to some people, but look, you got to understand your body, and you got to recognize and understand your thresholds. For some patients that is not possible. Some patients, they don't have the flexibility. They don't adjust to it so well, or they don't they maybe they get nerve pain, or maybe their bone healing is slow. Or I was lucky to have strong bone healing, fast bone healing, and I didn't get neuropathic pain. I'd sort of say those are the two variables if someone's going to have a second surgery
Mm.
is you got to have good bone healing, and you traditionally don't want to have any type of nerve pain. So I this year, 2025, the rest of this year, I said it's February 2020 or February 24th time of this video. But the rest of this year, I'm going to continue stretching every day. It's what I do. Not just normal gym, but I work in stretching and just general rehab, lightweight machines at the gym. Uh, I don't try to do anything outrageous, okay? I'm not a bodybuilder or anything. It's just you're talking basic machines, okay? I don't need to be squatting 250 kilos. It's just I'm talking safety, just leg press, extensions, curls, calf with calf exercises, calf lifts, weights, and just a lot of walking and the stretching. And so that is all going to be the compass is all pointing at potentially going back in a year to do another 7 to 10 centimeters so I can get to maybe 195, 6'5" would be a target. Once again, madness, but it's only madness until someone does it because it's all relative, right? I mean, if you told even the limb lengthening community, if you told them like 7 years ago or 10 years ago that you didn't need an external fixator, that there was something called precise where you could just do it magnetically, then that would have been considered madness. But uh, I had a good experience. People, there's going to be a spectrum. Some people maybe it's a bit more difficult on them. I'm not going to say it was easy. It was definitely not easy. You do suffer, okay? But with anything in life, in order to increase your status, especially as a man, you have to suffer. So it's actually a positive because it would be worse. Put it this way, it would be worse if you had the surgery, you gained 6 inches instantaneously during the surgery, and then you had to spend like 3 to 6 plus months just doing all the, lying in bed and doing physiotherapy. It's better where each day you're literally growing 2 millimeters. I was growing 2 millimeters per day. So each day of suffering, this is fine. This is perfectly fine because I know I'm growing each day. So the suffering equals the growth, and that makes it worth it ultimately. And some people stop at different levels. I said I got 15.3 centimeters. Well, I mean, there's a lot of patients who get 12, they get 13. They'll come in, they'll say they want 14, 15 plus centimeters. And then once you get above mainly 11, 12 centimeters, it gets kind of exponentially harder, that final couple centimeters. So it's not, it's for some of you watching this clip and you watch a lot of Live Life Taller's content, YouTube, Instagram, and you say, oh, this person had a goal of like 14 or 15 and they only did like 13. Why? Well, guess what? It's hard. That's why. And so I wanted it that much. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you've got patients where they'll get significant gains over multiple surgeries. Okay, so someone maybe they do a femur 10, 11, and then they come back and they do tibia maybe 7 or 8. I mean, you can get tremendous gains when you separate out the surgeries. I did 15.3 in one isolated quadrilateral. I think that was a record for you guys in one go. I think you had a guy who did like 15.2, 15.1. We're talking for a single quad, not
Yeah,
separated.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, 15.3 was a really good goal. Just I'm thinking. By the way, Mike, I want to ask you something. Your initial goal was not 15 centimeter,
14.
right?
It was 14 because I didn't know with precise that you could do 8.5 on femur because the telescopic rod will lengthen 8 centimeters. And then patients are pleasantly surprised to learn that, oh, wow, during the actual surgery, the initial surgery, that you get about zero point 0.5 centimeters, you get 5 millimeters spacing created with the osteotomy. So you start off with zero point 0.5, not even having lengthened yet. And then you add the 8 on top of it. So you can get 8.5. I didn't know that originally. So that increased my goal where I said, okay, I can get 14.5. And then there's a little bit of like the competitiveness because it was coincidental that there was a guy at the same time who didn't do any of the social media stuff, didn't show his face, but he was down the hall from me and he did 15. He was about 3 weeks ahead of me. So when I first showed up, and he did 15.1 ultimately, and I was like, well, if he did 15.1, he really muscled it out. I was like, I'm gonna get like 15.2, and I got 15.3. It's like it sounds kind of like you're joking, but no, I'm not. I was like, no, I'm gonna beat him, and I got 15.3. Um, Tibia was way more difficult than femur. Everyone's gonna be different, but femur getting to 8.5 was like not a big deal compared to tibia. Okay, so tibia is like where 90% of the pain is, and just difficulty. The difficulties with tibia, I think. There's obviously it's a lengthy discussion, okay, but tibia, when you get maybe above 5 centimeters, that's when you can start to get the acquaintus, um, the ballerina. Okay. And so you can get tightness in the Achilles, which it goes away. When it occurs, you'll think, oh no, like this is going to stay. No, it doesn't. It actually goes away pretty quickly. Um, with maybe about I don't know, maybe a couple weeks. It was went away quickly for me. Like a few weeks after I left Live Life Taller, like I didn't even have any ballerina or anything, but I said I got 6.8 on tibia. Um, but yeah, tibia is difficult, and then femur as you get maybe above uh, 8 centimeters, that's what, or maybe above 7 to 8, that's when you can start to get a little bit of lordosis of the spine.
That was
Okay.
the thing, Mike. I mean, I remember when we did our last appointment together. So there was not a big ballerine syndrome. I mean, it was really little, right? And also, just you had a lordosis. I mean, stiffness. We could see that, but it was still good for quadrilateral, 15.3 or
Well,
4.
it's improved a lot. So I mean, it probably gets better like 10% per month. I didn't have any ballerina when I left Live Life Taller. I left in August though. Okay, so I said I finished lengthening May 20. You have a million patients. You're not going to remember every little thing about me, but like I finished lengthening May 29th, and then I chose to stay on a couple more months just to do physiotherapy at the clinic rather than returning home. Some people go home right away. But I didn't, by the time I left Live Life Taller, like I didn't even have ballerina. I was walking barefoot. It was more just like stiffness and tibia, but a bit of the lumbar spine will curve in. You get anterior pelvic tilt as you get above 7 to 8 on femurs. And you just have to make sure you strengthen your abs. That stuff's gonna go away in time. You just have to make sure you strengthen your abs, you strengthen your hips. You're doing the physio exercise that they tell you. Your muscles are going to weaken as you go through the process. You sort of have to accept that if you want to get big gains. Some patients aren't willing to accept that and they'll stop early, and that's fine. It depends what your goals are. But if you're gonna go in with a big mouth that you want 14, 15 centimeters, you sort of have to accept that you're gonna have some ballerina, that you're gonna have some lumbar curvature, some lordosis, and it's gonna get better though. I still have it residually, but it's like better. It's gotten a bit better. I just make sure I'm still early in rehab. But once again, you have to combine these things, you put these things in the context of like what the ultimate gain has been. And so you say, well, I'm like over 6'1" now, 6'1" and a third, and I have a little bit of curvature of the lumbar spine. Like, is that the end of the world? I mean, would I rather be 5'8" again, 5'7.5" again? The answer is like no. Okay. And this goes back to our conversation that I did in the exit video about the even the scars, right? Where I said, give me double the scars and it's still worth it. Okay. Because people ask, oh, the scars. Once you actually increase in height, it's going to be so monumentally like worth it that you don't even care about it. Like scars are such like a laughable, trivial thing. Like, no, you don't want them. But I mean, I don't really care. You can reframe it as like they're battle scars. They are I I suffered to get to a higher level of status, and that's okay, and like it's a positive thing. Like that's I had to incur those scars and to accomplish this. So um in time, if I really care, which I don't, but I'm saying in time, I could think about things like maybe scar removal or even you know, tattoos, but I'm not going to do that. But as I said, I'm going to go back probably in a year and I'm going to do the quad precise a second time for another 7 to 10. So I will get double the scars when
Yeah.
uh, you know, but
Mike, I have a
yeah.
question to you. I mean, what is the reason that your condition is so good? Like during lengthening it was smooth, and after that, because of you are a medical doctor as well, or? Like just
No,
sit and
well, okay. I mean, sure, I have knowledge, but I would say uh this is funny. It's funny because it's good for business, but it's the truth. I did a lot of physiotherapy. I paid for a lot of extra physiotherapy. Okay, so I paid for 2 to 3 sessions per day, not per week. Okay, you get a lot of patients, they do like once a day. I was doing 2, 3 times a day, 3 times a day in the beginning. And then I was going to twice a day. And that was because I wanted sleep, truthfully. There were like quite a few days where like I'd have to like wake up, I'd be napping in the middle of the afternoon, and then I'd like have to wake up to go to a physio session. I'm like, well, I actually need sleep. My sleep schedule got all messed up at the end when I was doing a lot of lengthening at night. Um, and sleeping during the day. I was brute forcing those final few centimeters. That's what happened. But my condition, it was good because I did so much physiotherapy. I'd say that was the benefit of the medical knowledge coming in. It was knowing not to shortchange myself on that. It was like it was knowing ahead of time that like you have to take it very seriously, and like it's going to be all about getting ahead of things. It's getting ahead. It's like stretching every day for 3 months prior to your surgery when you go in. That's going to be really, really important for when you get in there and then you want to get to like 15.3 centimeters. Well, maybe if you didn't stretch, you're not going to get there because you're going to get a lot of tightness and pain at like 13. You're saying, I'm done with this. Okay. Or, you're going to have more difficulty with that. So I kept in check the whole time, doing a lot of physiotherapy. I really grinded it out because I wanted it that bad. Everybody who goes there clearly wants it bad. Okay, you're clearly making this a commitment and you're going there. But of the patients there who already want it bad, I was in a further subset of patients who wanted it like ultra bad, where I said, I'm going to do 15.3. I'm not stopping at 14 or 13.5. So yeah, it was doing the extra physiotherapy, and as I said, I was lucky to have fast bone healing. It's nothing based on age. There's patients who are older, younger, um, different patients who just will have different speeds of bone healing. It's sort of a just a toss up. But I was always told that I had really fast bone healing. They said, I think, I'm not going to say his name, but I was talking to one of the guys there at the hospital, and he was saying it's the fastest he's seen in 2 years in the clinic. I mean, it's like, okay, cool. But I mean, I was aware that I have fast bone healing, and that factors into decision making that I can do this again. Some patients who have slow bone healing, they're not going, they wouldn't even consider doing it again. Um, but yeah, it's you got to stay on top of the physio. I'd say that's the most important thing. You got to be stretching. And then when you leave Live Life Taller, I've chatted with patients since then who have the audacity to not be doing stretching. I mean, I think it's
That,
stupid.
that's the point, Mike, unfortunately. Also, Boney, I mean, you are a doctor as well, so and I respect you because I'm not a doctor. I don't have any medical backgrounds. I did lengthening 3 times, that's it, but I have also the knowledge. So what I mean is like the bone healing recovery, it really depends on the patient. I mean, if you eat very healthy, if you are moving, not just lay down and look at the wall. Unfortunately, there's also such a patient, Mike, from the center. Of course, I mean you cannot make steps. You know what I mean? You will have bad bone healing and yeah, and recovery
It
will.
was, and I should also say there's no real magic with diet and bone healing either. People say, "Oh, it's something with your diet." It's like it's really not. Like I ate well while I was there, but there was nothing special, no hormones, no like stem cell nonsense. Like I didn't do any of that. I just made sure I ate normally, and I did take calcium supplement when I was there. I mean, it wasn't unique. I talked with the nutritionist, right, that you guys have, but I didn't, it was nothing unique. But regardless, you just gotta, I would say the biggest advice I have for those of you who are going to live life taller is you absolutely need to commit to a minimum the 3 months prior to going, you should be stretching 7 days per week for an hour a day, your legs. Okay. And you say, that's crazy. Like, you really? Okay, don't take my advice. And then when you go there and you've got big goals, just don't complain then that it's like too hard for you or that you don't meet your
Absolutely.
goal. Okay, so it's all about getting ahead of it in terms of flexibility because that extra little bit at the end is going to be what determines, you know, how much you suffer essentially.
Thank you for your advice, Mike. And also the 15 centimeter, you reach in 3 months, right?
About 4 months. I
4 months.
reached in 4 months. If I had done every day, if I had done every day like 2 millimeters, it would have been 3 months, you know. You're gonna start off going really, really fast because your tissues are most pliable, they're most flexible in the beginning. You got a lot of leniency. So you're gonna shoot up pretty quickly, the first like 6, 7 centimeters, and then you might get some pain, extra pain with lengthening, tightness at various points, and you might say, okay, rather than doing a millimeter on tibia today, I'll do 0.33, or I'll take off entirely for the weekend. And so there's going to be those types of decisions. But I had an extra month because I had 2 weeks where, and this is where we discuss complications a little bit.
Mhm.
Okay. But I ultimately got through everything clearly. But I had one of my precise nails stop distracting. So it stopped working, which can occur with precise sometimes. And I had to have that replaced. And I had my ankle fracture as well. And that set me back maybe 2 weeks. And that was my choice to like just give my tissues the rest um, and just the combination of going slower on some days. So it took me about an extra month to lengthen. It took me 4 months to lengthen.
Mhm.
That's what
I
it
will ask
was.
you also later because of the complication when we talk about the topic because it's also important. Well, I mean, my question is to you right now, like, Mike, how do you feel right now? I mean, how can you walk normally? Can you run? Can you go to gym? Do you have any restrictions?
I haven't tried running, and that's because I still have all the metal in my legs, and I don't want to be audacious and cause unnecessary problems. Okay, so you still have metal on tissues, and when things are going well, the answer is do I need to, not want to, okay? Do I need to squat 250 kilos? The answer is no. Do I need to run on a treadmill right now? Do I need that? The answer is no, okay? So when I have the metal in me, it's just my personal choice. I'm not trying to do that at this point. When I get all the removals, obviously I said I'm going to go back next year, do the precise 2.2 quadrilateral again. But if I, let's say, get the removal this summer, 2025, give myself 6 months of just healing without the metal in me for the remodeling of the bone. Maybe I could consider those types of things. Maybe I could consider like seeing if I could do light running or something. My walking is fine. Okay, my walking is fine. If I'll stretch every day. As I said, I stretch morning, and then, you know, my walking's fine. Like if I didn't if somebody doesn't know I've done limb lengthening, like they wouldn't know they wouldn't know anything is like different with my gait. I do have a bit of an antalgic gait, which is just a fancy way of saying like, I do have a slightly abnormal gait. But what's very interesting is that this is actually linked to the ankle fracture that I had, which was just an unlucky thing I got during limb lengthening that like other patients don't even get. So it's like you'd say, oh, so limb lengthening gave you like a weird gait. It's like so ironic because it's like you do this dramatic limb lengthening process, and it wasn't even like the limb lengthening itself. It was like kind of an indirect sequel. It was an indirect like I got the ankle fracture during the process, and it's the ankle fracture that kind of made my gait a little weird with one of my legs. But this is on the spectrum of the conversation about the scars, where you just say like, give me double the scars and it's worth it. And I just say, look, like, I walk fine, but if I do have a little bit of abnormality with one of my legs on my gait, that is annoying to me. I don't like it. But once again, if it's this or like, would I rather go back to 5, 7 and a third and then, not have that, or would I rather be 6, 1 and a third like I am now? And have a slightly like awkward gait, I'd choose now. So when you view it through that perspective, then you just say like, it's so trivial. I don't like it. I don't like it, but it's like trivial. Um, as I said, like I don't I got unlucky on that front. It's sort of like every patient gets a combination of like lucky and unlucky things. Like I just remarked upon how I'm so amazing with my fast bone healing and I didn't get neuropathic pain. I'm so great. But at the same time, I got unlucky with getting an ankle fracture that like most patients don't even get. Okay, I think I was like a second case only of getting like an ankle fracture the way I did with Precise. And that's also because I was really pushing myself. I was I was trying, I was pushing myself when I was doing the lengthening. I wasn't just lying in bed all day. There was no event by the way, there was no specific event where like I fell or anything that gave me the ankle fracture. It was just pressure based. Um, it was just gradually increasing pain on one of the ankles when I was maybe two-thirds of the way through my lengthening. There was no event. It just said, wow, my ankle's getting more painful. And it turned out there was a fracture there. And so I think when you put the rods in this, you're fixating them with screws into the bone, you're changing, and then of course you're distracting the bone, you're increasing the gap in the bone, you're changing the pressure points or the stress points on the bone. And I was pushing myself, I was showering every day. Okay, like, and some patients they try to avoid showering when they're doing the lengthening, or they just try to use, I mean that's a whole discussion people don't want to get into, but like I was showering every day, and you can do that with the Precise, and I was getting in and out of that shower, and just yeah, there's mechanisms I can think of, like ways it could have happened, but I was pushing myself and. Um, but after that fracture, I was just more careful. So, but that's kind of the only real, like when you ask about my gait, it's fine. Once again, like no one would know unless I said anything. If I said something, you'd be like, oh, I notice it. Okay. I notice it. But if I
But
didn't say anything, you wouldn't notice.
okay, and Mike, like by the way, we have right now February 24th, 2025. So like February 2025, and when you leave the center again, just
I left the center in August. It was like
August
August, I think of it
2024, right?
August 7th or 8th, 2024. So
Okay, and when was like the point, which month or how long you need for a normal walking, which nobody notice any limping or something like that?
I was walking like pretty much, I was walking right away.
I know.
I was walking right away, like literally in August. By September, I was walking normally. It was the difference actually was just did I need pain medication versus not? So what I can comment on is up until December, I needed Vol which is an NSAID. It's like ibuprofen, but just stronger. I needed that in order to do like a lot of walking. Like if I didn't take it, I could like get around my place. I could walk to the gym without it. I was just a lot slower. But if I took the pain medication, I was like normal. And that actually concerned me up until December because I just said, when am I going to get off this pain medication? And what amazed me is how suddenly it occurred. Like I pretty much went from like needing the medication. I was like, there's no end in sight. Like, am I going to be on this like chronically? I was like very concerned about it to like instantly not needing it. Like I just went off of it for a day. I had tried weaning different times, but I went off of it and I just like didn't need it anymore starting in mid-December. I just like didn't need it anymore. And like I haven't, I'd say since December, I've taken it maybe like, and we're talking, yes, so the past 2 months, I've taken pain medication maybe like 3 times. And that's just if I've done like a lot of like, I walk a lot, like around the city. Like I go to the gym every day. I do a lot. Um, so I don't need the pain medication anymore. But I was walking pretty much like normally, I'd say since September. So to put this in to consolidate this for those of you watching this video, I finished lengthening May 29th. And then I would say I had left the clinic August 8th. So we're talking 2.5 months after I finished lengthening, I left the clinic. I would say 6 to 8 weeks after I finished lengthening, I was not walking without like crutches very well. I thought, oh, there's no end in sight with this. I'm going to be leaving here on crutches. And then the improvement happened pretty suddenly about 2 months after that I finished the lengthening. It happened like end of July. I went from like needing crutches for the first 2 months after I finished lengthening to like kind of all of a sudden not needing that. Like the first week of August, I like was walking around the clinic. Like you get proud of this stuff, okay? Because you're all of a sudden walking around the clinic without crutches, and everyone's like, "Whoa, like you're tall and you're not needing any crutches or anything." And it's like you kind of like pass, you get to a new phase, and everyone's like envious of that. And it was like very shocking to me as well, because like literally a week earlier, I'm on crutches, and I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be leaving here with crutches. And then just like a week later, I'm no crutches, and I improved very suddenly after about 2 months, I'd say. Yeah, and the other thing is live life because some of you guys who do the lengthening, you're going to be leaving, going home pretty soon afterwards. And live life taller. I mean, you guys obviously, you allow for service at the airport. You know, someone to escort you, wheelchair if you need. People who leave like immediately after lengthening, maybe they need a wheelchair service. I, you could say it's like an ego thing, but like I was like, I'm not leaving disabled. I'm not going to need any service, and I left in August. I went to the airport, didn't use any wheelchair service, no crutches. I
Oh
just
my
walked.
God.
I took like a Voltaren, and then
Got
I walked. I walked so much in the airport. I don't want to get into that whole story, but it was like a parody, the airport, because it was like everything was as far away as it could possibly be. Like you're the last gate, last exit kind of thing. Like it was as far away as it could have possibly been, but I walked the whole way, and that was a goal of mine, was to leave Live Life Taller not needing any crutches, and that's why I stayed 6 months. That's why I left in August. You got those of you watching this clip, I did physiotherapy twice a day, as I said, after I finished lengthening for those 2 extra months. Because when you finish lengthening and you're tall and taller, however much you get, but when you go home, you're going to be shocking people, okay? Even people who know about your surgery versus people who don't, everyone's going to be shocked regardless. But there's more of an impact if you can like present yourself to people where you don't have those crutches. So if you, let's say, gain 5 inches, I gained 6 inches. 15.2 is 6 inches. I got 15.3. So if I gain 6 inches and I go back and I'm on crutches, it's like, whoa, you're tall, but you're also on crutches. Are you okay? I literally would just, I walked up, I'm 6 inches taller, no crutches or anything. And it's like it's a very profound thing, okay? For not just other people, but for you. It's like for your self-esteem, and just it's surreal. So that was a goal of mine, uh, to make sure I left without any assistance. And you have those, you imagine these things when you're at the clinic. You're like, I can, envision into the future of what it's going to be like when I see people again eventually. And like that light at the end of the tunnel actually occurred, in terms of my interactions with people.
So, obviously, how do you feel right now? I mean, you are tall. Yeah, as you said, you are not the tallest guy, but for me, you are definitely tall, you know. My starting height was different. How do you feel right now? I mean, how is the reaction of people who knows you? Or I don't know, like, can you explain a little bit about that? I want to know your feeling.
I mean, it's varied. It's
Okay.
varied. Um, there's going to be people, they're not going to believe it. Okay. Because I didn't do 2 inches, I did 6 inches.
Yeah.
So I went from being 5'7" and a third to 6'1" and a third. And so like I think the craziest thing is like, because once you reach that new height, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to understand how other people view you. Okay. And the only way you can really try to understand it is you'll be the same height as some people where your memory of them will be where you remember that they were really tall. Like there might be someone at the gym that I remember who was like tall, I'm like, man, that like before when I was short, I used to think that person's like tall and jacked and like and now I'm taller.
Oh,
That's like crazy. Like I think there's like it's not to give anecdotes, but I mean that there's a lot of anecdotes, of like you just say, yeah, it must be like pretty profound for people, but the reactions are varied, of course. But it's the biggest thing is just it's a massive increase in self-esteem. And it does matter, okay? I mean, it matters in terms of how people view you. Some people like to think it doesn't matter, that yes, you can be confident and resilient and all these positive attributes at shorter heights, yes, but it does matter. And if it didn't matter, you wouldn't be watching this clip and you wouldn't be considering going to getting limb lengthening in the first place. So people understand that it matters. And then when you go through it, you're gonna see how like people view you differently and you get more respect and you've got more authority, and it'll be difficult to come to terms with how like you live so long at a shorter height. Some of you guys, you're young and you're going in there. Maybe your parents are paying for it or whatever, great. But there's those of us who, I said I'm 38. There's some people who are like 50s. You had a 63-year-old patient when I was there, so you got to live life at like a shorter height, and you get used to you get the lessons, the experiences, the rejections, the adversities of being at a shorter height. And then when you get to that taller height and things are gonna be more positive for you, and it's like it matters. It's like saying like, you know, does making a certain amount of money per year, if does making a million per year, million euros per year, is that going to be different than making like 50K euros a year? And it's like, yes, it matters. Okay, I mean, like say, oh, it doesn't matter for happiness or whatever. There's rich people who are unhappy, fine. But like you're delusional if you're going to say it doesn't matter or things aren't going to change as you move up. So, um, yeah, I'm things are different now uh at my taller height, and I I'm probably going to go back in a year to do a bit more. That's my thought at the moment, but I'll see how this year pans out with just general rehab and really max. I've already said numerous times you got to stretch for the 3 months prior to going in for your surgery every 7 days a week, an hour a day. That's how I'm treating this year. But like it's like training for the Olympics. Like this entire year, I'm training for next year. That's what I'm doing. So if my competition, if my Olympic competition is like next year in February 2026, like I'm already training every day right now, stretching every day. And then when we do these videos in like a year, or like let's say in 15, 16 months after I finish lengthening it to 190s, and you're asking me like how I did it, and I'll be like, let there be no wild confusion that like even in between my lengthenings, I was stretching every single day. Like you gotta, the ultimate results you're gonna get, the ultimate result you're gonna get is directly proportional to the effort you put in. You gotta suffer not only during the process, but you gotta put in a lot of investment, stretch every day, making sure you're doing the right things, like even when you're preparing between surgeries. It's a lot of work.
So, Mike, you wanna do the quadrilateral again. So, um, you did the quadrilateral precise, you will do it next year again. And like some people is telling us, hey, you guys are crazy because you are doing limb lengthening surgery, you take your life to risk and a lot of things, etc., etc. And now you are telling me that you want to do the quadrilateral again. Do you think that we are crazy, people who undergo the limb lengthening surgery?
Well, that's funny. Look, the external perspectives are always going to be that what you're doing is extreme and crazy. Yeah. So I would say yes to that. You get a lot of patients who don't bother telling other people that they're doing the surgery. They won't even tell their families because they already know the responses they're going to get. My family knew, and I got blowback, and I did it anyway. And now, that they see me at a taller height, and things are settled with that. It's like there is an element of, well, you told me not to, you were so against it, and look at where I am now. Look how much better I am now. and there is an element of that. So those of you watching this, you gotta understand that there's going to be a lot of people who are negative, telling you not to do it, and you're gonna get to a much better place, and ultimately, you'll be standing in front of that person in the future, way taller, and they'll have to come to terms with those changes in you. Okay, and I mean, that's pretty much what it is everyone on the outside is going to think it's extreme, but when you actually go through it, it's not as big of a deal anymore. So when I go back for the second quad precise next year, it's like I'm not disillusioned to the fact that it's going to be difficult again, but I've been through it once, and it'll be so much easier the next time. It's not crazy for me now, just crazy for other people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, your height is obviously, if I will be in your position, I will never do another surgery again because your height is good. But of course, I mean, your dreams is maybe different. I respect that. Just it's my opinion, but I respect you. And also, Mike, just I want to say that here in front of everybody, like it makes me really proud that you as a medical doctor choose Live Life Taller for your journey for the quadrilateral. And I hope that you want to choose us again for the quadrilateral journey, right?
Yeah, so it was a positive experience, as I said, and as I discussed in my other videos with you guys, the entrance, exit videos, etc., it was about the community there was the biggest reason I chose it. And those of you watching this clip, it's the same deal. It's like you're aware that you could do the limb lengthening at various places in the world, but it's the community at LLT. It was being able to hang out with other patients, chat with other people, make new friends, where I never felt alone, and I could always just have that social environment. Everything was there. The physiotherapy, the food was really good as well. You can just use your WhatsApp and literally just get room service. Like they'll bring you good meals to your room. It's amazing. So all that's right there, and that's the complete package. So just positive energy. It was a lot of very positive energy while you're going through everything. The staff, they're there for you. They respond quickly. They will address concerns. Okay, so everything was spot on. And as I said, it's going to be a difficult process, but just you'll fight through things. And clearly, I was happy with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be uh, strongly considering going back in a year to do another 7 to 10 centimeters.
Appreciate it, Mike. And do you think, because now I want to ask you not as a patient anymore, as a medical doctor, but this question should be as a medical doctor and patient. Do you think limb lengthening surgery needs aftercare, or is it a surgery which you can do it and go home?
What do you mean aftercare?
I mean, like to stay in a place who cares about the physiotherapy, X-rays, medication, or is it a
Oh,
surgery?
right, right. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. So you're talking about immediately after the initial surgery rather than like finishing your lengthening. Um, yeah, I mean, of course. Uh, so those of you watching this who, the idea of getting your surgery and then going to some random like hotel and just kind of like lying in bed there, and that's not the way you're gonna want to do things. Okay, especially if you got serious goals. You've got to make sure the staff is there. The physiotherapy, as I've already discussed, that's the biggest thing, is having that physio there, which I did 2 to 3 times a day, not per week. That was really, really important. And having just the food brought to your room, because there's going to be times when you just like don't want to get out of bed, or you're in a lot of pain, or and then you can literally get someone from LLT. They'll just bring you like, you know, kebab or whatever straight to your room. Some good stuff. You guys need spicier food though. That's the only like criticism I have, is that the food wasn't spicy. And you need like a spice menu. You got the spicy chili chicken option or whatever, which is like good, but like you need like a real spicy option on the menu there. That's important because like it was difficult for me it was really difficult for me. This isn't like a parody. I'm like being serious right now. I'm used to eating like a lot of spicy food. It was difficult for me, like not having like spice when I was there, to the point where I was gonna like, Amazon in some like special spice from abroad or something. But yeah, so everything there, inclusive after the surgery, as we already discussed, and the social atmosphere. Okay, you're not just in a hotel alone. It's not just like, for those of you who are maybe younger, whatever your situation is, you got like your mom or your dad, or it's not just like one person. It's like you got the whole community there where I could leave my room when I'm at LLT, I could go down to the lobby and there's other patients there where you can just talk with them. I usually just talked. I wasn't like a big into games. You got some patients playing video games or playing foosball or like I didn't really do that stuff. I would just talk to people. Um, but yeah, that was like super positive psychologically, where I never felt alone for the 6 months that I was there. Like it wasn't bad. And of course, you'll do your Zoom calls, your Skype calls with people abroad. But just being at the clinic it was not difficult on me psychologically from a social angle for the reasons I discussed. And that was huge in terms of my healing and just my perseverance. Because if that had been a negative like the social aspect psychologically, like if I'd been in isolation, if there had been those types of negative or those adversities, um, it would have been a lot harder for me to fight to 15.3. Who knows how things would have differed, but you guys are A plus for the atmosphere, the all inclusiveness of everything there.
Mike, there's also one more topic, and that's also really important. I want to talk to you because you know exactly what's going on here. This is like the negative vibe, like which is people's talking on YouTube channels, videos, internet about complication, some misinformation, like wrong information about limb lengthening surgery. Of course, complications is a part of the job of surgeries, of medical terms, you know what I mean? Because we are doing surgery, we have infection risk, we have mechanical faults, and I mean a lot of things, right? And before I ask you the question, I mean, we as Live Life Taller, we try to make everything as much as transparent as we can. So, like with videos, thank to you and also to other patients who's explaining about his experience. And we know exactly that we are doing a good job in the limb lengthening surgery file because that's the reason why we are posting the videos of the patients here and our job as well, the X-rays and everything. So, and you know exactly as a medical doctor, I mean, to post the X-ray, it's like the job of the doctor, which you can see, you know, everything about his job. I mean, what you will say about complications because
Complication rate is high with limb lengthening. Okay. Um, I think people have the expectation in any surgery, it's not limited to limb lengthening, regardless of what surgery. If you're going to do liposuction, you're going to do implant surgery, a hair transplant, whatever you're going to do, rhinoplasty, people are going to have the expectation that things are going to go perfect. Um, and so orthopedic surgery is high risk in general. Even if this is like your granny needs a hip replacement, or somebody has an ACL tear their knee and they need that repaired. Okay, so orthopedic surgery in general is difficult high risk surgery, and metal metal in the body has high risk of infection. Okay, no matter where you put it, and so that's these annoyingly are real complications. Okay. There are patients who have these issues. Okay. So whether it's nerve pain, as we talked about, whether it's slow bone healing, whether you're unlucky, you get an infection. Okay. I had a screw infection on my left uh, distal tibia. And the ankle fracture I had was actually on the right side. So it was unrelated to that, actually. Um, but I had a screw infection, And you got to think of it this way. I think I had 11 surgeries with you guys. And when I say 11 surgeries, because those of you watching this are like, wait, what are you talking about? Not 11 surgeries as in I went to sleep 11 times. That's not what I mean. 11 as in when I had the quad precise done, so the both tibias, both femurs at once, that's four surgeries technically, surgery on each limb segment. It's four surgeries. I had, I needed to have one of my precise nails replaced about midway through in the femur because it stopped distracting, stopped lengthening. I had, which is a fifth surgery. I had an ankle fracture on the right. That's a sixth surgery. And then when I finished, uh, I did the optional nail substitution for the LON trauma nails. This is a more of a lengthy discussion. Some of you are not going to know what I'm talking about, but the precise nails are not fully weight bearing. So you have the option of keeping them in, no problem, but you might be on crutches longer until your bones are more healed. I didn't want to wait. I wanted to just I put the trauma nails in so I can fully weight bear without crutches, as I talked about.
You
So
regret
that's
your
each set.
decision, by the way, Mike, about the nail exchange?
What is it?
You regret your decision, or would you
No, no, no,
regret?
it's not, no, it's not, no, I'm glad I did it because I walked out of Live Life Taller without crutches, as I talked about, whereas like other people, they can't do that if they don't do the nail exchange. So it's like about like, do you want to prolong the time that you're on crutches? And the answer is like some people are okay with that. They don't want another surgery. I wanted to be weight bearing, fully weight bearing. So I was willing to do the nail exchange on all four segments. And so that's four more surgeries. That's 10. And then on the nail exchange, on one of the nail exchanges, I got a screw infection. So if you think about, let's say, every piece of metal, every separate piece of metal, every screw, every rod, everything that goes in, if there's, let's say, a 1% chance of an infection with each little piece of metal, if you got one surgery, it's not an issue, but all those 1% add up, 1%, 1%, 1%, et cetera. And so I had the initial lengthening with the quad precise, no problems. I had those two corrective surgeries, no problem. And then on the nail swap, I got one screw that got infected, and I ultimately had to go back to Live Life Taller, and they took care of it. Okay, you guys took care of it. So we're being forthright. We're being open right now. We're not trying to hide anything. Okay, so I had to go back, and we had to take care of that infection, and I spent more time there. But what I can, and of course, it's not a good, like I wasn't happy about it, but um, as I sort of already discussed, it's a mixed bag in terms of whether you're lucky or unlucky with certain things. I was super lucky, fastest bone healing in 2 years that they've seen in patients. I'm so amazing, right?
Exactly.
And I had no nerve pain.
Yeah, that's
I was
also
very, very lucky.
big.
Okay. No nerve pain, super lucky, super fastest bone healing they've seen in 2 years, super lucky. But then what was my mixed bag? I was unlucky with getting an ankle fracture, even though there was no specific event. Most patients don't even get that. And then I was unlucky in terms of the Russian roulette of like, annoyingly, I was one of the patients who got an infection on one of the screws. Okay. And it's especially annoying because, you do the precise also. One of the reasons to do quad precise is rather than LON is to decrease your infection risk. Um, and had I just kept the precise nails in, I wouldn't have had the infection. But when you ask, do I regret doing the nail exchange? What's like kind of ironic is like I still don't regret doing the nail exchange, even though I had the infection from it. So that kind of in and of itself should tell you like how I feel about it. Because like the alternative would have meant that I was on crutches like maybe 4 months longer. Okay. And I got off crutches. So when that infection was taken care of, then, I was fine. I was still walking even without crutches when I had the infection taken care of when I came back to LT. Okay, so, but you guys took care of it fast. You guys like the, just to be clear, I sent text, audio, WhatsApp to the medical staff. They responded fast. The surgeon responded fast. And because I'm a doctor, I knew to act fast and they told me to act and I got back there. They picked me up from the airport. We took care of it. They didn't charge me for it. And obviously my time. okay, my time, and uh, you know, I paid for my travels, and there's those discussions. But I mean, the point is, when we talk about the medical care, you guys responded quickly and you took care of it, and that infection was settled. Uh, but that's being forthright with complications. As I had a precise nail that had stopped distracting and it had to be replaced. I had an ankle fracture that had to be stabilized, and then I had infection on the contralateral, the other side, nothing related to the fracture, and one of the screws when I did the nail replacement.
I mean,
And
what happened to you is really rare, by the way. That's really crazy, man. I mean, it's like it's really, really rare. So I really don't know that a patient who had like an ankle fracture during lengthening, like problem with the nail and screw infection. I mean, respect, but still you are happy and lucky, and that makes me really happy, by the way, Mike.
yeah, so I mean, but that's also I had big goals and I pushed through, and so uh that's just part of the process. Orthopedics, it's got those risks. So that's what happened. But clearly, as I discussed, I'll see how this year goes with rehabilitation, and then I would come back and do another 7 to 10. So the fact that I'm even considering going back, it tells you how I feel overall. It's actions that matter, not just words. So um, I'm okay with how things have gone. But I'm not naive either. I'm not some like 16-year-old who, has never had any adversities in life. And, I'm more impervious than I'm stronger mentally than a lot of other people to be able to go through all those things. And it's just, I fought for what I wanted. And I see that as I see it as a positive ultimately. I see all those adversities I've gone through with the lengthening as they're all positives because I had to suffer. Some people don't like that word. They're like, what do you mean? I'm gonna have to suffer? It's like you're gonna have to earn
Yeah.
your increase in status. If it's so easy, it wouldn't be worth anything. So you're gonna have to earn it, and you're gonna have to fight, and there might be some complications are a possibility. It's real life, it's surgery, but um, it's worth it when you get there and you're ultimately taller and your life's changed. And so but that's my story basically.
Thank you so much, Mike. And Mike, what is your feedback as a doctor to because like Live Life Taller is a place. Yeah, we are doing limb lengthening surgery, and you choose this place. I really appreciate it. By the way, of course, we have different numbers of cases. I mean, you cannot compare Live Life Taller with doctor in United States or in Germany who is doing only 20, 30 surgeries a year, because this doctor they have a different complication rate, and Live Life Taller have a different complication rate. So, what do you think about the complication rate of Live Life Taller as a doctor? I'm asking you now. And what do you think about the reaction for all those complications?
Well, I don't have the specific knowledge of like other people around the world, their comparative complication rates. Okay. It's more about it's understanding that orthopedic surgery, as I said, in general, has higher complication rates compared to other types of surgery. Okay. So when you're putting metal in, the body doesn't like metal. So whether it's a dental implant where you got a metal piece of a tooth going in, like metal on your skull. Like the body doesn't like metal.
Mhm.
So when you're putting a lot of metal in your legs, germs can attach to that, cause infections. Okay, if you're doing these, distracting the bone, lengthening the bone. So uh, in terms of Live Life Taller compared to other places, I don't have that direct knowledge. Okay, I haven't compiled. I'm like half joking right now, but like I haven't compiled like an Excel spreadsheet of all the different surgeons around the world and their complication rates. But um, there are patients who get complications. Okay, and what's going to happen is, as with anything, not limited to the limb lengthening, it's people who have the complications who are going to have the loudest voice. Because if something goes well, then you're not going to usually go online and talk about it. You just move on with your life. For example, if you like search airline industries, like, or like travel agencies, and they'll have like negative ratings. And it's because, people who had a problem with their booking with an airline, they're the one who's going to go online and complain that, their airline booking had a problem. Whereas the thousand other people who had no problem with their booking. When's the last time you booked a flight, traveled from location A to location B, and then went online and gave a 5-star review for the travel agency? It's like you don't do people don't do that. So annoyingly, not just with limb lengthening, but with many areas of healthcare, whatever it is, um, people who have problems are going to they're the ones who are going to voice, and it's okay to hear those things. Um, but it's just frustrating that those voices can be very loud. But I think ultimately the power of the improved height, of the increased height, is so profound that a lot of patients are okay anyway with like it's not like I wasn't aware of complications. I'm literally a doctor, so it's not like I was unaware of complications before I went to Live Life Taller. Like, I mean, people know, like people just will pretty much they might subconsciously say to themselves, like, I know that there's risks, but I'm going to do it anyway because I want to be taller that badly and I'm willing to take on those risks. Okay. I mean, that's kind of what happens. Um, it's like going back a second time. It's like, people say like you're crazy, and it's like, well, why? Think about it. Why would I be crazy to go back a second time? Why? If we delve deeper, okay, I'll tell you why. It's because aren't you aware, Michael, that there's complications, you'd have increased risk of even more complications doing a second quad precise, even greater risk of issues, right? I mean, above the first surgery. Secondary surgery as compared to a primary surgery, I mean, there's even further risks. So, but some people are willing to take on those risks. So, uh, yeah, as I said in summary, I don't have like a deep knowledge of like LLT's like complications comparatively to like other places per se. But just in an absolute sense, um, infections, complications, they do happen. And you just have to know as the patient going in that orthopedic surgery, it's just a high risk field in general. And you're going to have to weigh that in your mind. You're going to have to say there's risks. And if I'm not willing to do surgery, there's no problem with that. But just you're going to live out life not taller. There's nothing wrong with that. There's people who say, I don't want to take on those risks. That's bad. I don't want to do that. Okay, then don't be taller. And it's like don't have an increased status. Like don't, to increase your status, you got to take risks. It's like business.
Yeah, exactly.
People who make a lot of money in business, well, guess what? They took risks, didn't they? And they continually take risks and they take on stress and they take on headaches and they're firefighting. So it's like the more you move up in life, you're going to take on more risks and headaches, and you got to balance those risks in that process.
For sure. And also, Mike, the fact is, if you're doing a lot of surgeries, of course, you have also many cases of complication compared to a place who's only doing 10 or 20 years, 10 or 20 patients a year. You know what I mean? So it's a different numbers, different complications rate for sure. Everybody's differing. And also, Mike, you're a medical doctor, So, and I read about like a surgeon from United States, right? So he answered a question of a patient about quadrilateral, and he tell him like he will never do the quadrilateral at the same time, like in one surgery, in one anesthesia, because it's like dangerous, it's risky, you can never walk again, fat embolism risk, and a lot of things, etc., So,
Okay, so my response is it's low IQ and stupid. Okay. So, the being able to do both segments, the tibias and the femurs at once, saves you an immense amount of time. So, you got the United States is overregulated. I'm American, but I'm living in Japan at the moment. But it's you got too much regulation in my view. But not being able to do both segments at the same time, it's sort of just I think people just have their agendas, or people they impose their personal opinions on things without necessarily the science. So, uh, doing both segments at the same time, like the number of people who will go to LLT and they do a quadrilateral, whether it's hybrid with the LON precise or whether they do double precise. It's the number of patients who just go through it so uneventfully. Like as we talk about, like as I mentioned in the beginning, there's very few people who are actually willing to put their face on camera. Okay. But it's like there's a lot of people at LLT where it's just they move through without an issue. So it's I think doing quadrilateral, I'm glad I did it. Saved me a lot of time, and I'm gonna go back and do another quad.
But Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. I think also those doctors is talking like that because, to can do the quadrilateral at the same time, the surgeon needs experience. We don't need to talk about, right? I mean, he needs the experience to do the quadrilateral. And I think the doctor cannot say to the patients, "Hey, I don't have the experience. I'm sorry. Go to other place." They're telling to patients, "I don't recommend." This is like they protect themselves because I don't think so that a doctor will tell to a patient or talking to his patients or a potential patient say, "I don't have the experience." You know what I mean? So otherwise, I will
Well,
be.
okay, no, it's a good point. And look, it's understandable because people want to eliminate headaches and complaints. If you're a surgeon, you want to eliminate headaches and complaints. So to err on the side of like ultimate safety, even if it's kind of like excessive, that to people is like a good thing. You'll say, I don't care, be excessive. Great. If you want to be maximally safe, don't get the surgery at all. Okay, like just stay short. Okay, but I mean, people want to eliminate headaches. So if you have a surgeon, let's say, who's going to do more quadrilaterals, and for every like 100 quadrilaterals he does, maybe two of them, there's going to be more complications compared to others, and those people might go online and like, voice their issues. Like those are extra headaches that some surgeons just say, I don't even want to go there. They'll just say, I'll happily like not have, those cases. I don't want to, I'll just avoid all headaches altogether. So I think that's kind of what it is. You got people who have different thresholds for what they're willing to allow. But as I said, anecdotally, um, there's so many patients who get the quadrilateral and it's so uneventful. Like I've said this before and I'll say it again. Like there's a lot of people, most people do not put their face on camera with LLT. Most people are like shy about it. They're like they feel shame. They like or like they're private. They don't even tell their family. They'll like lie to their family and say they're studying abroad in France or something. And meanwhile, they're getting surgery in limb lengthening in Turkey. So they'll lie to people, come up with excuses, like just lies. Most people. They don't want to put their face on camera, but you get a lot of patients where it's like they just move through without a problem. And as I analogized before, when fly from point A to point B and there's no problem, you don't go home, get online and say, this airline gave me a great flight, 5 stars. You don't do that. Okay. It's like the one time in like 9 years that you have a bad flight or that you're treated with bad customer service that you might go online and give a 1 star review to an airline or something. And it's like, well, those are the only things you're going to see online. So you just gotta you gotta know that there's a lot of people who move through with no issues and the people are very happy. What if I weren't willing to put my face on camera, right? Because a lot of people will voice their negativity or whatever it's going to be, or, people have shame or they feel, they're more private about it. But what if I'm not willing to put my face on camera? You wouldn't know me as a data point. You wouldn't know this as this information I'm telling you. You wouldn't know that like things are fine, that like I'm willing to go back and like you wouldn't know that. So it's
Really
just
appreciate
most people just aren't willing to say that, uh, just talk in general about their experience.
Yeah, unfortunately, but nobody's thinking like why those complications happen. For example, you had also complication what you did as a doctor. You know that, of course, you listen your surgeon. You came back to fix the complication, and now you are in front of me in the video and Zoom call, and you are telling me that you are really happy and you want to come back for another quadrilateral. But there's also patients, Mike. They never listen, follow any instructions. If they have any problem, they call another doctor. Like they trust, for example, I'm talking for LiveLifeTaller. They trust LiveLifeTaller and Dr. Halil. for the first surgery, but if anything happened in case of complication, they don't trust anymore and call another doctor. So and they hoping that the other doctor will help him, but this is not like that because
Okay, that's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. So the worst thing you could possibly do is actually if you have a complicate if you've gone home and you have a complication is to like go to a different doctor and not go to your initial surgeon, which is like an interesting like it's kind of like a paradox in a way because you get some patients where they say, well, I had a complication. Why would I go back to that person whom I had a complication with necessarily? But they understand your case. Like when I had the screw infection and I had to go back to LLT and I didn't want to do that, I went back instantly. They took care of me instantly. They knew my case, they knew me. Once you start introducing a different healthcare practitioner, especially in a different country, they're not going to want to take on someone else's headache and they don't know you. And also there's actually risk of it not resolving because they don't fully know your case. Okay, so you might say, I don't want to go back to the person I had a complication with, but in reality, if you go back to that, you get it taken care of, it's more likely to get taken care of versus somebody else, maybe less likely to get taken care of. They don't know your case, they don't know your anatomy, they don't know what was done exactly the same way. And before I returned to LLT, when I had the screw infection, I had those discussions with some patients. Okay. I had those, some of my friends, and I had mixed opinions on it. There's some people say like definitely like go back. Some people say, oh, like you shouldn't go back. And I went back and it got taken care of. Okay. And so, nobody wants to talk about like the negativity of it, but um, that's orthopedic surgery. Okay. But if the point you're asking about, and I'll address in kind of a summary there, is like if in the unfortunate event that there is a complication, people who don't go back, they actually increase their chance of further complication. So you need to, LT will take care of it. You just got to go back. They know what they did with you. They know your body. They know like your X-rays, and they were in there once, so they can resolve it. They're going to make sure that they resolve it. And so,
appreciate it, Mike. I mean, we are definitely behind of our job. We don't charge for any complication, even if the complication is from patient side, patient fault, whatever. So we don't charge for any complication because, yeah, we are behind of our job. And also, right now we have more quadrilateral than just femur or tibia bilateral patients, and we are doing all our quadrilateral at the same time. So as long as we know that the patient is in a good condition and we can do it, all good. Of course, we are not doing the quadrilateral for everybody. I mean, the patient also should be physically able to get this done. So, yeah, Mike, thank you so much. I have one more last questions to you. This is about the precise max because a lot of people is asking me, Sedat, what about precise max? Now you sent me something, and thank you, by the way. Now I'm sending to patients who's gonna ask me asking me like about the precise max. Can you
yeah.
talk something about the precise max?
Well, just the Precise Max, an upgrade on the Precise 2.2, which is what we currently use, is that you're not going to need crutches ultimately, that you can weight bear. You can fully weight bear the same way you can with the LON trauma nail. It's a huge plus. It's a lengthy discussion, all these things. Okay, we go into more technical detail, but the point is, Precise Max theoretically could be able to fully weight bear, and you don't have to do a terminal nail swap. Okay, when you finish your surgery, ultimately you finish your lengthening with Precise, you don't have to do a nail swap at the end in order to be fully weight bearing. You don't have to do that with Precise Max. But there's I guess Precise Max was recalled, and because of high rate of distraction failure, presumably distraction means expanding the bone, as I mentioned before, but they were called Precise Max, and that means that we've got just Precise 2.2 to continue to use. But it's the same thing. When I had Precise 2.2, I already talked about, one of my nails stopped distracting at one point, and I had to have that replaced. It seems to be one of the issues with Precise, just in general, that there's a risk that the telescoping process can just arbitrarily cease. There's no event. It's not like you bump your leg. It's nothing like that. It's just it'll stop lengthening. You're like, why did it stop lengthening? And that happens with Precise, I guess it was happening a lot with Precise Max, but it just means that like when I go back for the Quad Precise 2.2 again, I'll just have to do a terminal nail swap for the LON trauma nails in order to be fully weight bearing at the end of it. Um, but hopefully at some point we will get a functional Precise Pro Max, or whatever they're going to use, right? Right. So, I mean, at some point, but it's a gift to be, it's a blessing to be able to do Precise at all. Because, as you went through, you did what, the Elizarov or whatever you say it, like you've done, you did antiquated, I mean, procedures. Like 10 years ago, the idea of telescoping magnetic nail was like, ludicrous. People had these big external fixators beyond just LON, the Elizarov or whatever. Um, Looks like a halo around the leg. I think you did one of those. So, the idea of like having the Precise 2.2, even if there's a possibility of distraction failure as a complication, you have to have it one of the nails replaced. I mean, that's still like trivial compared to, it's better than having the fixator on. I know some of you guys watching this, you're going to do the LO1 fixator. You want like your extra bit on femur. You can get a little bit more on femur. You don't care about it. There's a lot we can discuss on it, but at least in my case, I would do the Precise again, hands down. I wouldn't do LON.
All right, Mike. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your amazing time and for the video. And I'm sure that will help a lot of people. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, Sadat, I'm glad we chatted again, and we'll chat more in the future. It's gonna happen,
Exactly.
so we'll do more of these. All right,
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mike, bro. I really
all right,
appreciate
Sadat.
it. Take care, please.